This is the very first crochet hook I ever picked up over a decade ago. I feel so old saying that. But it's a 4mm Susan Bates hook, and this is what I learned to crochet with, and I used it for years, for very, 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 very long time. In today's video, I wanted to take you through how I first started crocheting as a hobby and how in recent years it became a whole small business. So I had knitted before in like high school and then also in college. I just kind of have these like knitting phases where I just like get into like knitting obsessively. And knitting was something that, even though I enjoyed doing it at the time, like it didn't stick. Like I didn't continue doing it for like a long time. And I think I knew about crocheting like very vaguely. Like I knew it was a thing, but I didn't know much about it, and it wasn't something I was interested in starting. Little did I know. Either in 2011 or 2012, I was in college and I was on the internet and randomly came across this stuffed animal. And I actually think that it was a knitted plushie, not crocheted. But regardless, I saw it and I had never seen anything like it before. So I was like, what? You can make your own stuffed animals? And I've always loved stuffed animals growing up. So like to see that and to realize like I could potentially make my own stuffed animals was like, it was very exciting. So I started doing some research and basically went down the rabbit hole and found out about amigurumi, which is crocheted plushies. That's how I started to learn more and more about crocheting. And I actually had remembered seeing a crochet hook at my house. So whenever I would get into knitting, my mom would also get into knitting. And so I knew that she had this bag of all the yarn and different size knitting needles and things. And in that bag, I had remembered seeing a crochet hook because I was just thinking like, why is this in here? Like, what does she use this for when she's knitting? So I went in search of my mom's knitting bag and I found the hook, and it was a 4mm Susan Bates crochet hook. And I'm like, perfect. I don't have to buy a new one. And then I went to the nearest crochet store or craft store, which at the time was AC Moore. And I started looking at all the yarn. And of course, I'm just starting out, so I don't really know much about the different types and different sizes of yarn or the different sizes of crochet hooks, and that certain size yarn go with certain size hooks. I knew nothing. I just thought, buy the cheapest yarn because I'm just gonna try it out and maybe I won't like it. So I bought a skein of like a neutral colored Red Heart brand Super Saver yarn. It's worsted weight acrylic yarn. And fortunately, it happened to go really well with the 4mm hook I happen to have. And so I went home and I started by looking up how to start amigurumi, which was doing the magic ring. So I learned to do the magic ring, which involved learning how to do single crochet, learned how to do increases, decreases, and I was off. I just started freehanding stuff. I started with making just like a round sphere shape, and I experimented with a slightly longer, like an oval sphere shape. Is that a thing? But anyway, yeah, I just started freehanding and experimenting, and I'd make these different round shaped balls and just like sew them on together and try to make an animal. I'll try to share some different pictures of my very first creations on the screen here, but my very first, like the very first thing I ever made was this dog. So yeah, they didn't look great at first. I never thought that, oh, this is so cute. And like months down the road, I realized I had been making them like inside out. But I did enjoy doing it, and so I just kept doing it and kept practicing. And pretty soon I was giving away plushies to friends and family, just like anybody that wanted one. I started just giving them away because they were piling up. I had so many and I didn't know what to do with them. So since I taught myself with the 4mm crochet hook and worsted weight yarn, that's all I ever used for years until 2023. I had always used worsted weight acrylic yarn. That was all I had seen. That was all I had known. So yeah, I didn't even know like chenille or blanket yarn was a thing. So in 2019, I decided to open an Etsy shop. And so I worked on it for a few months. I had huge help from my brother, who's a graphic designer. And in 2019, I finally opened an Etsy shop. But it turned out that really wasn't great timing because like soon after I opened the shop, I found out that I was pregnant. And even though my pregnancy was more on the mild side and not really that complicated, I still was like tired all the time and, you know, I'd randomly get sick. And so I didn't have a ton of energy to put into Etsy. And then, of course, what comes after a pregnancy? A baby. And so then I really didn't have the time or energy to put into Etsy. So all that time, I did keep the shop open and I had a few listings and a couple sales. But yeah, I didn't really put a lot of work into it for a long time. So it didn't really take off. Fast forward to 2023. I have to give a huge shout out to Cameron from Cameron's Cute Creations. It is so random and so funny that one person, like it takes one person to give you all of the motivation and inspiration and influence you need to just start something. And Cameron was that random person that did that for me. I came across her post at the end of 2022, and it wasn't even about doing markets. It was one of her other like reels or something that was engaging enough that I went to her profile and started looking at her other posts, and turned out that she was also a crocheter, but she's actually selling stuff going to craft shows and markets, and her Instagram account was solely dedicated to inspiring other crocheters to do the same, to start selling stuff at markets. Going to markets as a vendor, like I love going to craft shows and looking at all these like handmade things and shopping small businesses, but being a vendor was one thing that I told myself I would never do. Like why would I put myself through that? Because I am more of an introvert, and so like why would I actively seek out opportunities to go and meet strangers, and not only that, try to sell my stuff? Like that sounds like a nightmare. Again, such a funny thing. I started watching all of Cameron's reels, and then I got to watching her YouTube videos, which included market vlogs where she showed a lot of her like interactions with her customers at markets, and she just had such energy. And she made it look fun, and it was weird because watching her videos made me feel like I can do that too. I think I was just delulu at the time. But yeah, I started binge watching all her videos, not just the market vlogs, but she had a lot of like display tips and how to set up market booths. And then because I was watching all these videos about markets, YouTube did its thing with the algorithm, and I started getting recommendations for all these other crochet content creators with them going to the markets. And so, yeah, I definitely got influenced and was deluded into thinking that looks so easy and I can do it. I can do it too. And so I started looking up selling at markets as a vendor, and then went down another rabbit hole of how to become a sole proprietor, because I found out that when I'm selling at markets, I need to collect sales tax, and there's a right way to do it. Basically, I had to get registered, get a sales tax ID number and all this stuff. Just a lot of legal and logistics stuff that I wasn't even thinking about when I first thought, oh, I can start selling at markets. Yeah, I can do that. So yeah. Thankfully, I had help. I didn't do it all by myself. So if you are thinking of getting an LLC or becoming a sole proprietor, and you're like, I don't know what any of that entails, what all these things mean, and I don't know what to do. That was me. I didn't know anything about anything. And then I learned from another crocheter on Instagram. I believe it was Taylor from Bags by Bento. She also shares a lot of tips for small business as well. And it was to contact local organizations that could potentially help you with the whole process. So I started looking up, I think I started with the Chamber of Commerce in my local area. And then I found out about the Small Business Development Center that is also located here locally, that will basically walk you through step by step to become a registered sole proprietor. So they also hosted free webinars, live webinars, so that you can ask questions and chats and all this stuff. So I went to a couple of their webinars. I ended up signing up, and everything was free. I got connected with a consultant. Anytime I have a question about my small business stuff, I can just go to this consultant, just email him, call him, whatever. He walked me through literally step by step, go to this website, fill out this form, you have to pay this much, do this, do that. He walked me through all the steps of becoming a registered sole proprietor in the state of PA. Literally could not have done any of this without their help. So if you're in the same boat where you want to start a small business and you don't know where to start or what to do, look locally. There's probably an existing organization that you've never even heard of, even though you've lived there all your life. But I didn't live here all my life. So anyway, there's someone there that can help you. I'm pretty sure. And all of this happened so fast, because 1 minute I'm just watching YouTube videos thinking, oh, maybe I can sell at markets, to a few weeks later, I'm a registered sole proprietor, and I'm like, what just happened? So yeah, that's how I became a small business owner in 2023. So I did have a few months leading up to my first craft show in 2023. And so months leading up to that first show was definitely nerve-wracking. And it was just filled with so many what-if questions. But it really has been so fulfilling to see people's reactions to my work. But not only them seeing my work and thinking it's cute, but actually buying them. Crocheting as a small business is definitely not just sitting around crocheting all day, unfortunately. There's so much that goes into it. You're taking product photos, you're listing items, doing social media, tracking the inventory, thinking about booth display, looking up the right shows to apply for. And the way I crochet has definitely changed too. Like before I was selling at markets, it didn't really matter like if I changed like the style of my crochet from plushie to plushie, and like each one would end up like looking a little different, even if it was from the same pattern. So like for example, I'm working on a chipmunk right now. Like I could make 2 chipmunks and they would end up looking like pretty different because I would do a stitch differently here and there, whatever. But now I've made sure that when I'm crocheting a product, I do things consistently so that each one comes out looking like as similar as possible. Like they can't all be perfectly the same, because that's the beauty of handmade, right? But I use the same yarn, color, same hook size, eye size, and they're just more consistent. The best part of doing markets, as I mentioned earlier, is definitely seeing the people's reactions. Sometimes I can tell like people aren't necessarily planning on going like booth to booth. It's like when you go shopping, you don't necessarily go into like every single store. But if you see something cute from outside, like through the window, you might then go in and check stuff out. So like sometimes you can tell when people aren't planning on like coming into your booth, but then like they see my stuff and they're like drawn into it. Like I love that people can't stop like gushing over how cute everything is in my booth. Sometimes it's the little girls that can't stop obsessing over a certain plushie, and then you get the occasional adult men that are shopping for plushies in your booth. But regardless of like who it is or how old they are, the way that like their faces literally light up when they come to your booth is everything. Sometimes it's like a literal loud gasp, or sometimes it's just like a subtle like gentle smile on their face, but I just love seeing people's reactions. So what's next with my business? So I'm obviously gonna be doing the same thing pretty much. So like I'm still gonna go to markets this year. I've actually already applied to most of the shows that I think I'm gonna be doing this year. And then there's a couple that I know don't start taking applications till later in the year. So I'll wait for that. Last year I started wholesaling, and I definitely want to do more of that. I loved doing wholesale. So I want to start sending my buyer's packet to some other businesses that might be interested in buying wholesale from me. It's gonna be a new challenge because I think most businesses, especially local ones, tend to do more like consignment style. So like we actually have several consignment shops around here, but I've done consignment and I'll just be honest, I'm not a big fan. I'm not saying I'll never do it again, but I would prefer wholesale. So yeah, that's sort of the next goal for my business, is to try and get more into wholesale. So if you're thinking about turning your hobby into a business and haven't yet, let me know what's holding you back. I know there can be a million reasons, but sometimes the biggest hurdle is taking that first step. And I've been there many, many times, but trust me, if I can do it, you can definitely do it too. But most importantly, you'll be fine. And here's the little chipmunk I crocheted. Thanks for watching, and share with me your own creative journeys below in the comments. And I'll be taking a break next week because I'll be gone visiting family. But I'll be back with more small business struggles after that. Bye.